One of the hardest things for teachers to manage are those students who not only do not participate in activities, but will actively try to sabotage your class by uniting their fellow students against you. We call these students negative leaders. They can be a nightmare to deal with, and many teachers handle them completely the wrong way, thus making the problem worse. But with the right techniques and mindset, you can transform these problematic students into some of your most valuable classroom assets. Let's learn. Hey everybody, it's Chris from the Language House. I've been in education for over 25 years. I've taught thousands of students, I've had thousands of classes, I've created language schools, and most importantly, I've trained over 3,000 people to become language teachers at my school, the Language House in Prague. My YouTube channel is a one-man show. I do all of the shooting and the production and the editing. If you like my content, leave me a subscribe. I love to hear from my viewers, so drop me a line if you have something to say. In this video, we're covering negative leaders, who they are, why do they act the way that they do. I'm going to give you some preemptive things that you can do to make them less frequent, as well as specific strategies and techniques to execute when they pop up. If we have a little bit of time, we can also chat about my own experience with negative leaders and how I dealt with them during my career. Watching anything for over 10 minutes is a lot to ask these days, but if you watch the whole video, if you take some notes, I'm going to give you the tools needed to take these negative leaders, these problematic students, and turn them into some of your best students and biggest defenders. Watch the whole video. We don't need to go deep into the psychology of negative leaders, but they pop up in early teens and into adults. In short, they're students who have a problem with your role, with your authority in the classroom, and they will actively try to persuade the other students to go against you. Oftentimes, these students have problems in their own life with authority, or they feel that they don't have any power in their lives, and they're taking that out on you. And if not dealt with effectively, you could lose your entire class. Preemptive measures. My first tip whenever a teacher has any type of problems with a class is to take responsibility first. Do an inventory of your strengths and your weaknesses, and be brutally honest with any skills that you're lacking. If you're below average and weak in certain areas related to teaching, you're naturally leaving yourself open to attack, so start there. It's always the case that as teachers improve their weaknesses, a lot of these conflicts with students go away. Teachers, if you feel you have some weaknesses in your teaching game, join one of my personalized workshops. They are 60 to 75 minutes. They're live. We cover some great topics, and we can definitely help you with some of these problem areas. So you can check those details in the link below. For negative leaders, here are 6 vulnerabilities to shore up in advance. Negative leaders gravitate towards weaknesses in these areas. Let's briefly go through each one. Your voice is one of the most underrated skills that all teachers can work on. When we think of voice, we're talking about your volume, your pitch, your graded language, your overall TTT, bringing it down, speaking clearly, speaking directly. If you have a good voice, that's sometimes all you need. Next is going to be your confidence and your posture. If you feel comfortable in your role as a teacher, that's great. This is how you control the room and how you occupy space. If you don't have that confidence, you open yourself up to a lot of attacks. One quick tip, you don't want to fake it, right? I mean, you might have to a little bit, but if you're really kind of putting on airs and you're faking that confidence, a negative leader is going to want to expose you. So it has to be from a genuine place. Third is going to be social connectivity. It's the amount of rapport that you have with your students. If you have a good rapport with your entire class, it's going to be a lot harder for that negative leader to persuade them against you. So work on rapport. Next, and one of the biggest ones, is going to be your overall competency and knowledge of subject matter. If you don't know what you're teaching and it's clear to the other students that you have holes in your knowledge, this is a massive target that a negative leader is going to exploit. So coming into your class prepared, knowing what you're teaching is key. Just as important as competency, but almost on the other spectrum, is your emotional stability. Negative leaders are going to be drawn to teachers who they believe they can break, right? Because that's how they get the power. So you need to be a teacher who can manage the stress and who can keep it cool even when things get bad. Last and final one is that emotional intelligence, that social awareness, right? Good teachers have the ability to read the room, read the class. If you don't have that, if you don't know where your students are currently at on an engagement level or on an emotional level, it's very easy for another student to move them against you. Even if you're an ace in all 6 of those categories, negative leaders are still going to pop up. Here are some perfect strategies on how to deal with them. All right, so strategy number 1, and probably the easiest strategy, is to simply ignore it, right? So the student makes a comment, they take a swipe at you, and instead of reacting to it or getting flustered, you almost act as if you are unaware, like nothing's happened, right? Now this only works if you literally do not react at all. You can't change your, biochemistry, you can't get nervous, you can't change your voice. You have to ignore it completely. So that's one. The second thing is you have to be aware of how the other students have reacted to it, because negative leaders, remember, they focus on persuading other people against you. So if their behavior is getting a rise out of the other students and they're reacting to it, that's going to cause problems down the road. But in general, if you can ignore it completely and you just let it roll off your shoulder and you move on, the student realizes that you're not going to give them any kind of reaction and they're going to move on to another target who will. So the second technique of dealing with negative leaders is to shut it down quick. And what I do is I'll feel a push or a negative swipe from a student and I will immediately push back. I won't push so hard so that all of the other students are aware of it. I don't want to make anything awkward, right? Because they're going to feed off of that. But it's enough where the negative leader, the student, feels it, right? And if I can add something funny, something sharp, something a little bit biting, that's key. It works perfectly. Now here's the important step. As soon as I push back, I will move immediately to my lesson and interact with another student. I'm not going to linger in this space because I don't want to create that tension, right? I don't want other students to see that there's tension between me and one of the students in the class because they're going to feed off of that. So I get a push, I push back, I move on to the next student. You do that a couple times and the student's going to realize that you're not a target that's going to be rolled quickly and they're going to move on to another person. So technique number 3, and I personally don't do this that much, but a lot of teachers will say it works, is you get super overt, all right? So you feel that push coming from a student, maybe you ignore it the first time, they do it again, you stop the class and you make things super awkward. You just talk to the student and say, like, why are you doing that? Is there a reason why you're interrupting me? Or am I gonna have to deal with this as a teacher this entire lesson? Or do you think this is helpful? You make it overt and you put a lot of attention onto that student. Personally, I don't like it that much because I think you're creating tension, which they can feed off of, and you're making things too personal. But a lot of teachers will say it works well, so you might as well give it a shot. Personally, though, I prefer something that's a little bit covert and doesn't involve the class at this point. Regardless of which one of these you choose, you have to do this step next. So the next time you have class with this student, go up to them before you start teaching. Make it the last thing you do before you start teaching and just establish rapport with them. Get personal. Ask them about their hobbies, about their favorite music, what they did. Do something that's light and make it really personal, right? So don't talk to them in front of the whole class. Go up to their desk, lean down, and have a brief conversation with them. Make sure this is the last thing you do, and then you immediately go up and you start your lesson. So the strategy of doing this, the theory behind it, is that it's going to be extremely rare now for a student who you've had a personal conversation with to start attacking you, right? I mean, that would take a special kind of student to say, wow, that teacher's cool, we were chatting. Now I'm gonna start insulting them. So do this right before your lesson. Do it a couple times consecutively, and most likely you've neutralized whatever negative leader would have been in your class. So this rapport technique works great, and it's one of the reasons why I don't like doing more overt things. I don't like that third one where you stop the class and you make a big scene out of it, because I want to be able to make that connection with the student, and eventually they're going to stop doing it. However, as you know, this is not going to work all of the time. This will work for many negative leaders, but some of them are out of control. Some of them are great white sharks that require a little bit more than these basic techniques. So if you got a real bad one, this is what you're gonna do. After class, you're gonna take the student outside and you're going to speak with them privately. You're going to acknowledge that there's a problem, whatever that is. You're going to then give them a compliment. Say something like, I see that you're a really smart person. I feel like the class respects you. I think you have some really good ideas, and you're gonna offer some way for you both to cooperate. Something that gives them a little bit more power and control in the class. It could be like an assistant teacher role. It could be to head up a project. It needs to be something where they're in charge. You don't want to attack them, right? You need to get them to agree to offer their ideas and to offer help. You got to think of what it's going to be in advance. Don't come and talk to them and have nothing prepared. So think of something in advance that they could do, that they could be in charge of. This is what negative leaders secretly want. They want to be in control. Maybe they have something in their life that is preventing them from having any control. Maybe they have a lot of personal problems and they're taking it out on you, but you give them what they want. You give them a little bit of this power. And once they agree in that private conversation, you gotta subtly let the other students know that this student is going to be taking that increased role. So now two things are going to happen. Number one, the student does well. You make them a positive leader. They look at you as an open person that has given them a chance. They've executed on that. They then have an interest in your class going well because they're a part of it. They don't want to do a bad job. They're going to want you to do well, because if you do well, that means they're doing well. You've essentially turned them from a negative leader into a positive leader. And this is going to open up a lot of rapport that you have with them. You can work with them closely on different projects, and they're going to respect you for it. You may realize that they begin to actually defend you in front of the other students. Like, hey, this guy's cool. Stop making fun of him. This guy works really hard. This isn't easy. In short, they want you to do well because it's benefiting them. They're getting good stuff out of it. The second scenario is that they don't do well. They fail miserably. And while this isn't good for them, it does work in your favor because they will realize that teaching is hard. You've given them a chance, but they were not able to execute. And most importantly, the other students will see that this person is not someone to follow. They shouldn't be following them and listening to them because you, as the teacher, are the more competent one. You are the better leader. So while scenario number two isn't ideal, we would prefer scenario number one. Sometimes this happens, and when it does, you can slowly bring them back into the fold. But now, if they start making comments or they start criticizing things, the other students will oftentimes gang up on them and say, hey, you had your chance, you're not a good leader, we want to follow this guy. With nearly 25 years of teaching and educational experience, I have dealt with dozens upon dozens of really difficult negative leaders. And what I learned over time is it's never a good idea to be aggressive with them. We want to bring these people into the fold. They're your students, right? We don't want to have issues or drama, and you should always try to use those techniques of giving them a little bit of power and seeing what they can do. Whenever I've used this strategy, I've always taken some of the most negative people, the people that seem to legitimately not like me at all, and make them some of my biggest supporters, right? So try that. The main tip is that we want to work with them. We want them to work with us. We want to take them and make them better students. And if you are a good teacher, if you are caring, if you have the interest of your students, and if you're looking out for them, they're naturally going to see this over time. We can't help that they come in with some of these preconceptions or some of these issues, but we can change them, right? So let me know how it works for you. I always love to hear a comment from my viewers. If you use these strategies and they work, I'd love to hear it. Thanks so much for watching.